This statement pertains to Bob Dylan's stealing of James Damiano songs. I produced this video to provide the public with a level of insight into the perception of judicial and political confusion. On September 15, 1995, I, James Damiano, filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against Bob Dylan in the United States Federal District Court. Bob Dylan immediately applied to the court for a gag order designating all discovery materials produced during discovery as confidential, which was granted to him on March 14, 1996 by Magistrate Judge Joel B. Rosen. At the time, I was unsure what reason the court could possibly have for granting Bob Dylan a gag order. The court will sometimes grant a gag order to ensure a fair trial by preventing the public dissemination of information that could potentially influence jurors. This seemed fair and justified short term, or until the official date that the court set for discovery to end. I even considered the gag order to be justified if it were to last until the end of the case. However, the case never went to trial and was never heard by a jury. It was simply dismissed by Judge Simandl. I never expected the order to last for 29 years. The discovery materials included 48 hours of videotape depositions that were incriminating to Bob Dylan, blatant admissions of guilt by Bob Dylan's witnesses, 11 years of verified documents between James Damiano, CBS, Sony, and Dylan's producers, a music analysis from a Harvard-educated musicologist of James Damiano and Bob Dylan's Grammy-nominated song Dignity, and many other issues of facts, including the absence of a Bob Dylan affidavit of denial and also Bob Dylan's absence of a deposition. By assessing the key factors of this litigation, Bob Dylan's stealing of James Damiano songs, and connecting all the dots, it's conclusive and substantiated through the record of the court that in every major ruling of every major motion, the court was partial to Bob Dylan. In fact, the court went as far as to deny James Damiano a trial when Judge Simandl dismissed the case in summary judgment, as he disregarded 50 hours of depositions that revealed Bob Dylan's actual depth of James Damiano's songs. Perhaps the most incriminating factor regarding the court's partiality toward Bob Dylan is the documented and substantiated 29-year gag order against James Damiano. It is, however, plain and simple that Bob Dylan's gag order on James Damiano forms the basis of the court's partiality towards Bob Dylan. Now, after 29 years, I realize that one purpose for the court's gag order was to ensure that my movie, Bob Dylan's stealing of James Damiano's songs, would never be produced. Within the last 29 years, there were movie companies that were interested in producing my movie, Bob Dylan's stealing of James Damiano's songs. One of them, a professional company, assessed that the movie would have netted approximately $214 million. My, James Damiano's share will be 20% of the net profit, $40 million after the movie was released, and a $3 million check up front. The movie company agreed to proceed with the production of the movie with the stipulation that the confidentiality order, the gag order, was lifted by the court. Although I, James Damiano, have continuously pleaded with the court over the years to lift the gag order, it still, to this day, June 11, 2025, remains in effect. despite it being 29 years after the case was dismissed. The order strives to avoid transparency. The order also attempts to diminish James Damiano's credibility to the public. Anyone searching the case would probably come across the fact that I, James Damiano, have been held in contempt 3 times for violating the gag order by posting deposition materials on the internet. These depositions were incriminating to Bob Dylan, yet the court held me in contempt, which is ludicrous and unlawful. So, to reiterate, by the court maintaining a gag order on James Damiano for 29 years in Bob Dylan's stealing of James Damiano's songs, Judge Joe B. Rosen of the Third Circuit Court has documented its bias against James Damiano. To say the least, Judge Rosen's indisputable partiality toward Bob Dylan is devastating to the integrity of the court.